Hey you, it's Sonia and welcome back to my channel. So today I would like to touch on a little bit more about limerence and the signs that you could be limerent. Okay, I've identified the top 10 signs that someone could actually be experiencing limerence. But before we dive into that, I would kind of like to recap a little of what limerence actually is. My guess is that if you are on this video watching right now, you probably already know and you probably could already be limerent, okay? But just let's look at the definition that Dorothy Tanoff actually have, and she was the one that actually coined the term limerence. And I also got this quote from Maria Popova's website. And so Dorothy Tanoff was a psychologist, I think, back in the 1960s. And she coined this term after observing the behaviors of several people who, behaved in a certain way whilst they were pining for someone. And what they all had in common was, an uncontrollable, biologically determined, inherently irrational instinct like reaction towards someone that they liked. And that liking or that obsession is usually intrusive and invades our consciousness against our will. Okay, so there are some, tenets of limerence being kind of uncontrollable in some ways, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that later. But this is what limerence really is. Okay, in the following slides, are the top 10 signs, and you could actually be experiencing one or some of these. But in the work that I've done with many of my clients that come to me for limerence, they usually experience most of these signs. Okay, so the very first one is that you could be attracted to emotionally unavailable people. Okay, so this includes celebrities, okay, people that are miles away from us, married people, kind of liking the idea of being in a long distance relationship with someone who is like really far away, geographically distant. You could also be going or tend to go for people who do not like you, and people who have actually outright told you that they're not interested in you, who have actually rejected you. Okay, and people who may be unavailable in some way. Okay, and when a person is not available in some way, they usually cannot, be physically be with you in a relationship in the present. Okay, why do people get attracted to emotionally unavailable partners? Is because usually, there's a psychology mechanism that's working in their minds, and I wouldn't go into that in detail here, but I'll link a workshop that I actually did recently on it. And this attraction is usually due to a protection from being hurt. Okay, so that one is one of the first biggest signs. One of the next signs, okay, you'd have a tendency to have one-sided crushes and relationships on people, okay, which is kind of linked to the attraction to emotionally unavailable people, because when we have this, thing, we see this pattern in our lives where we are constantly, liking people that we can't have. We are constantly in unrequited love, sort of situations, or we tend to, like someone, but we can't really express ourselves. There could be a sign of something there. Okay. And one-sided crush as well, we've all had that, and we all actually kind of grow out of that at some point in our lives. But for many limerent people, this actually continues for as long as it does. Okay. So one-sided crushes, could happen when you do not know the person well. Okay, that's where the fantasy thinking kind of starts, which I'll talk about that later as well. You may like someone a lot, and they could actually have been reciprocating at some point, but you are actually overly fearful of them knowing about your feelings. You hide away your feelings, you hide away yourself. You could also be overly shy in their presence. Okay, you find yourself like filtering a lot of your personality, a lot of your speech, and a lot of your behaviors. You find yourself freezing up a lot in front of your crushes, or the limerent object, or the LO, as what we call in limerence. You don't feel yourself at all. Okay, you can feel it in your body, because usually when you are overly shy around someone, you tend to kind of limit your actions and your speech, so you're not really yourself. Okay, and with all this one-sided unrequited stuff, there is little to no reciprocation, okay, unfortunately. And this is why it's one-sided. I mean, if it's two-sided and if it's reciprocal, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But yeah, with one-sided ones, there's usually no reciprocation. Okay, and the third sign, okay, you may have, heard of this thing called attachment styles, and it came from a theory also in the 1950s and 1960s by someone called Bowlby. Okay, and it has suddenly had this resurgence of popularity in a lot of mainstream media and books and things like that. But for the limerent person, okay, mostly the patterns that you actually see in yourself is that most of them are actually anxious avoidant or just completely avoidant, okay, in their relationships with people. And our attachment styles actually stems from our childhood, and it actually stems from how our caregivers actually took care of us, or how they actually interacted with us and showed us love and affection back then. With the avoidant attachment style, that could have been very cold or inconsistent, showers of affection. So you kind of so because you don't get that kind of consistency and reliability and predictability from your caregiver, you find it quite painful to always kind of look for them, look to them for affection, and you don't get it from them. So what the brain usually does is that it kind of turns off that emotional or affection mechanism to kind of protect yourself from feeling hurt. So instead of, looking for affection, looking for attention from someone, your go-to response is to kind of just avoid it altogether, or just to not even, not even make yourself feel affection altogether. Okay. This is a longer story for another day. Okay, because attachment styles do kind of affect many areas of our lives. But here in the context of limerence, it tends to start um, from it being avoided. Okay, this is subconsciously then carried over into all the relationships and friendships that we have in our adulthood. Okay, and you'll see that a lot of avoidant people, they tend to be avoidant not only in their friendships as well, they tend to be avoidant in everything. So friendships, relationships with colleagues, on dates, romance, everything. Okay, because our attachment style is not just, oh, it doesn't just happen in one specific context. It's usually something that encompasses a lot of areas in our lives. Okay, so on to the fourth sign. You have, very deep rooted fears about love and romance. Okay, that could also stem from your childhood. You could have had prior negative experiences about love and in dating that had really, really deeply hurt you, and you have not been able to kind of go past that. You could have dysfunctional models of love, okay, that you might have observed in your environment. Perhaps the adults or the parents or your peers around you, they don't have very loving or happy relationships or happy marriages, or it's always kind of like one sided where one person is always giving more, the other person is always taking, things like that. When you observe things like that around you, it kind of shapes your perceptions about love. Okay. And then you have all those passed down beliefs, about relationships and love and stuff like that, that can also kind of, make your perception skew a certain way. Okay. And these fears that we have about love and romance, it can potentially bring about quite a bit of pain. All right. Because when for example, if you see people around you not really like enjoying their marriages, not really enjoying their relationships, always telling you negative things about dating and stuff like that, it will make you want to avoid relationships and love. Okay, on one hand, everybody kind of craves love in some extent. Most people, I would say, it's very human. It's a very human. It's a very human feeling, a very human need. So on one hand, you kind of need that and crave that on a lower like psychological level, but on the other hand, you have all these deep rooted fears that make you kind of like shy away from them. Okay, so it's a conflicting thing for a lot of limerent people. But these fears can really prevent someone from seeking out real reciprocal relationships. Okay, so the fifth sign, there could be an obsessive quality to your character. Okay, and this is rather interesting because you could have been already a pretty intense person prior to your limerent episodes, and you could already have a history of being quite obsessed with people that you liked, or really quite obsessed, or very possessive, I would say, about the people in your lives. So it could be like your friends or your family. I remember when I do have an obsessive quality to my character previously, especially, and I used to be really possessive of my friendships when I was very young. Um, and I'll feel incredibly abandoned and incredibly sad when someone didn't hang out with me. So and then that kind of led to my kind of aligned with my limerent episodes. Okay, and this obsessive quality also means that you tend to be very loyal, okay, to the thought of a limerent object. To you, like liking someone else outside of a limerent object, outside of your crush, it feels like a betrayal. It feels like you're cheating on them. Okay. Um, you might also have a lot of intrusive thoughts about the limerent object, which, as you have seen in the previous definition, it feels very uncontrollable, and it feels like you have no, like, you cannot really stop it from happening. Okay, so this is part of the obsessive, addictive, intrusive quality of limerence, which can make it like really like hard to let go of. I'll talk about this in other videos, but this is kind of like the obsessive bit about limerence. And the sixth sign is really the being prone to fantasies and maladaptive daydreaming. Probably heard of the word before. So a lot of limerence, okay, basically everything about limerence is actually everything about your LO and limerence actually exists in your head. Okay, so you kind of think up of a lot of stories and a lot of scenarios about you and them being together doing things. And what I've observed about a lot of limerent individuals as well is that they are very into fanfics. So reading fanfics and imagining stuff, because a lot of fanfics are it's fiction, right? So it's stories and stuff that is actually not based in reality. There's also a lot of social media stalking, kind of following up on what your LO is doing, piecing together the information based on the pictures that they post, staring at their videos and their photos all day long. I know I used to do that, and making up stories, and basically fantasies and fiction about the person. Okay, and it all exists only in your mind. Okay, and this is actually a form of escapism. Um, Many people do this, but I feel that, and I've observed that many limerent individuals actually do this because there are certain things in your life that you haven't really unpacked and haven't really healed from. Okay, and there are certain things in your life or certain feelings or certain situations that you're actually trying to run away from. There is probably pain and trauma and things there, that you probably need to unpack and probably need to look at, that you're also trying to escape from. So limerence, or being crushing on someone in your head, is something that is actually very, it feels very pleasant, it feels very nice, it feels totally different from what you're experiencing in your reality. So this is one of the biggest things about limerence, which is the fantasy thinking. The seventh sign, okay, this is very common, but you are in one of your limerent episodes, you will experience this intense anxiety and emotional volatility, okay, and these emotional highs and lows are actually very dependent on your LO's behavior. Okay, so if your limerent object, if you know them, if they smile at you, if they talk to you, if they whatever, they come and approach you and have an interaction, you probably feel really, really good. But if they ignored you, they don't smile at you, etc., you go into a very depressive low. And if you're actually having limerence for a celebrity, I find that this could be based off the information that you get about them. So when you find out that maybe perhaps they've broken up with their partner, then you experience an incredible high. But when you hear news about them, getting married, getting attached, possibly having rumors, with someone, then you feel incredibly low. Okay, so you tend to oscillate between euphoria and chest tightening anxiety or lows. Um, and there's also a characteristic of uncertainty, okay, which makes you feel very anxious. Okay, it makes you feel very anxious. And interestingly, for limerence, this uncertainty, or maybe receiving bad news, like perhaps you've actually heard that your crush or your celeb, a limerent object, actually has a partner. um, I feel that in most cases it doesn't really hold a person back, but it actually intensifies the limerence, okay, and the determination to actually stay loyal. Like, okay, if I stay liking this person for the longest period of time, perhaps they will actually leave their real life partner and I can think about them, in peace again. Okay, so there's that aspect there as well. And the thing about this is that it's a very toxic, painful cycle because you're constantly, you and your mind, I would say that your brain, okay, is constantly chasing this emotional high. Okay, this dopamine is kind of like social media addiction, really. But this is in the form of limerence. You're constantly chasing this high and this euphoric feeling, okay, and which tends to feed your obsessions. This is why the habits around limerence can be very difficult to break, because the individual is constantly seeking for new novel things, like seeking out for new fan fiction to read, new behaviors, new photos, new videos, things like that, new interactions, to feel their high that they want to feel again. Okay, so this actually feeds into the obsession and into the addictive cycle of limerence. Okay, and the eighth sign, deep-seated loneliness. Okay, deep down, many limerent individuals actually feel very lonely, even if they have a lot of friends, they're surrounded by a lot of loved ones. There's this also very, very deep feeling of boredom and emptiness. Okay, and a lot of it is actually linked to several things. So, a lack of purpose in life, lack of intimacy or true affection with the relationships that you do have. There's also a disconnect from your inner self. Okay, you're not really very connected to your feelings, not really connected to your experiences, and not really connected to how you're actually wanting to live your life. Okay, so there's a lot of loneliness in limerence, and loneliness also comes from the fact that you just know that you cannot have your limerent object. Okay, and that brings about a lot of sadness, and it just makes you feel very kind of like, hopeless, right? And all these emotions are all linked to each other, and they feed off each other as well. The ninth sign, a sparse relationship life, or a relationship life that hasn't had very deep intimacy. Okay, so perhaps a single person, a person who is single and who is experiencing limerence, probably you don't date very often, or maybe you don't have many romantic relationships that go very deep. Um, and limerence doesn't only afflict the singles. I actually have a lot of people, okay, a lot of clients who are actually married or are in long term relationships. And um, the thing is that they don't feel very fulfilled in their relationship. They don't feel very connected to their partner, okay, because in the first place, they're not very connected to themselves. Or they could be, with their partner for a different reason, and then, they kind of have a new crush and a new limerent object that they cannot let go of. um, and usually these relationships are kind of like their relationship partners do not really know about the limerent object. Okay, that's, you can watch my video. I have a video about it, which I will try to link up here. But limerence actually does affect your relationship life. Okay, or it has its effects in your relationship life as well, because you don't feel very deeply intimate or very deeply connected to your partner. Okay, and the last sign, I mentioned this earlier. Yeah, it's a lack of purpose in your life. Okay, so a lot of limerent individuals, when they come to me, we don't just talk about limerence. Okay, we talk about a lot of things in that's going on in your life, because it links back to a lot of the stuff that is about yourself. Okay, so a lot of limerent people struggle with kind of knowing about their true purpose. Okay, asking yourself questions like, why you here, what kind of person do you want to be, who do you want to be. It's not just about the achievements, because I know our society focuses a lot on KPIs, achievements, having this and having that in a very conventional way, but it's more about the kind of person that you want to be, the kind of characteristics you want to embody. Those things are important to think of as well. Okay, and it's not really talking about like your day-to-day achievements, like, oh, I made food for myself, I made food for my family, I this and that. Those are great, but those are like kind of like the minutiae of life, right? But I'm talking about the essence of you. Okay, your life. It's a bit philosophical, but we really need to think about it, because we don't have much time on this earth. Okay, not to sound too morbid, but we don't have much time. Life is long, but it's also short. Okay, so it's time to actually kind of really focus on who you want to be and what you want to actually do in this lifetime, and focus on your relationship with you, because limerence starts with you. Okay, it doesn't start with a limerent object, your crush. A lot of limerent people actually have certain things in themselves, within themselves, that they actually have to kind of resolve. There's a lot of unhealed stuff that's going on, and it's also a very huge disconnection with the self that limerent individuals um, could start looking at. Okay, so these are the 10 signs that usually taken together can give a person a very, very high propensity to be limerent. And they are usually also the 10 signs that I see in my clients. Okay. And what I always actually repeat to them or tell them is that limerence, the healing from limerence is a journey. Okay. Like, from this is the kind of the model that I actually go through with people, but who come to me. But usually start with, why you're limerent, and kind of, thinking about like how could you even be limerent in the first place and stuff like that. So it's all the things, about like, oh, being obsessive and being like this and that, being attracted to emotionally unavailable people and things like that. And then in the second stage, we go deeper into that, like, why? Why did that attraction to emotionally unavailable people happen? Is it something that happened in your childhood? Could we explore that? Is it something about the inner child that you need to work with more? Is it something about yourself, your self perception, your self image? Maybe it's been damaged along the way, or maybe your self esteem is not great. Um, and then, kind of when we move past that and we heal all of that, then we ultimately can achieve the aim. I wouldn't say achieve, but ultimately get closer to our desire of having a reciprocal, loving relationship with someone, right? Because at the heart of it, limerence is all about love. Okay, limerent individuals, like anybody else on earth, want to experience love. Okay, they want to experience love with a particular person, but it's actually not really the person, but the qualities that the person actually embodies and the feeling that they get from liking their limerent object. So healing is a journey. Okay, be patient if you're not really there yet. But what can really help you, and I have some resources, is I will link down below in the description box, is I have my book that is out right now, and I also have my one-on-one coaching sessions if it's, there's certain things that you would like to explore around limerence. You want to feel better as a whole, because when you heal one part of limerence, for example, you heal your inner childhood wounds, you'll find yourself also healing lots of other, issues that kind of crop up in other areas in your life, in your job, in your friendships, your family relationships, how you see yourself, how you actually show up in the world. Okay, so help is available. I hope this video was also useful. And I will see you again in another video. In the meantime, just check out all the important resources and links to my Limerence playlist as well in my description box below. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.